Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to part 2 of a series on From Russia with Love Junk Journal Kit. The kit that I'm using is from Natasha's Scrapbook Corner, and it's a beautiful kit and she still has some left. And so last week when we were working on the kit, I was selecting papers for my signatures and just kind of going through the kit in general. So what I did in the interest of time was I went ahead and cut down the papers to the signature so they would fit. And I just thought I would flip through some of those with you. Now, I want to make this a vintage kind of feel, grunge vintage feel. And so I used almost a whole ink pad of vintage photo on some of these things. But I just thought I would flip through some of these for you. So they each have 10 pages in them, like 10 sheets. And of course, that's going to give you, I don't know, like, what, 20, 40 pages, something like that. And so some of these, I did just some tip outs. I did some pockets. I went ahead and did these. Went ahead and did them. I don't know why that one's like that for. Put that back in there. So anyway, I just went ahead and put on here. I cut all the pages down to size. I have some envelopes in here. Another little flap that I made on this one. And then some of them I did cut down. These, you can see, like, I did a lot of distressing, just sort of to make them even. Now, I will bring back some color and stuff in these when I start decorating them. And I wanted to show you how I was going to sew them in today, but I realized when I went and looked, I only have white cording right now that I sew my pages in with. And I really didn't want to use white because they did not look, it just doesn't look good. So let me show you what I did to prep all these. And then I'll show you how I'm going to bind it and how I'm going to set my binding up. So these two I've already done. They've already been distressed. And this is the one that I have not done. This is actually going to be my first signature. And I love that I had these papers. They made perfect covers for each of the signatures, and it kind of fits in with the with it. So what I did was I put the papers together, and then I just took one at a time, and I just basically distressed some of the edges. These I did not distress that much because they were pretty much already distressed. I wanted to do some tea dyeing or coffee dyeing on some of the pages. Now this page right here is just a sheet of paper that I used because when you distress, you should start off the edge of the paper and bring it into it so that you don't have big globs of distressed ink. And so I just did these on the edges a little bit. I didn't do them a lot. And some of these have some white splotches on them, and so I just kind of went over those a little bit. But that's basically what I did for the other two journals, the other two signatures, excuse me. I just went through and I distressed them because I am doing a vintage theme. I didn't want to have like bright white paper and that type of thing. Now, when I cut my paper down, what I did was I used these sheets right here, the ones that were my cover, and I aligned those with the book. Now, these are just 8.5 by 11, and of course I folded it on the 11-inch size, so it's 5.5 by 8.5. And my book on the inside is 6 and 6 and some odd, and you know, they just fit perfect anyway. So I measure that, and then I cut them. Now the pages that I'm putting on the inside of my cover to make my signature, I cut them just slightly smaller than the 8.5 by 11, because when you put them inside, if you cut them the same length, they will stick out. So basically, I just cut maybe just a tiny, about 1/8 of an inch, if that. I just wanted to cut just a tiny little bit off, so that way they would fit nicely into the signature. And you can see here where I just cut them so that they'll all be, when I get them sized up, they'll all be inside the cover. So this is what I'm doing. This is the stage I'm at right now. I'm trying to finish this last signature, and yeah, I did take some pages out because I pulled a lot more pages than what when we were together last time. But then I got to thinking, you know, I'm going to decorate these pages, and I don't want it to be so full that you can't sew them. I mean, you know, close the book. Although every book I've ever made has been a chunky monkey, but had that big alligator mouth, I can't help myself. So all I'm doing on these brighter pages is just taking my dauber that doesn't have much ink on it, and I'm just going around knocking back the brightness of it, because I do want this to be more vintage looking. I'm doing the edges just a little bit darker. And then I'm just kind of doing like this, knocking back the brightness of it. That's all. And then I'm just putting it back in my thing. Now, I'm going to, you know, continue to do this. I'm not going to do this all on camera because it's just going to take forever if I do. So I want to show you how I am binding the book. And then next week when we get together, I'm going to sew them in for you. And I'm also going to share what I decided to do with the cover of the book. So this spine right here in the middle is 1 3/4 inches. But then you have where your book bends right here. So you know you want your pages to bend. So what I did was I cut a 3-inch by 9 paper here. And it's going to go in the middle. And basically I lined it up between this white part right here and this white part down here. And all I did was hold it in place and bent the book up like this. And it's going to give me my 1 3/4 inches in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like a little template for it. I'm not going to use chipboard. So all I'm going to do, move this out of the way. All I'm going to do is get my cutting board here. And I'm going to go ahead and cut another 3-inch slice out of that by 9. Okay, and so this yeah, I need to slice a little bit more off. I must have missed that just a little bit. It's just not quite an 1/8 of an inch. Okay. So I'm going to line this up with this to make sure that it's right. And it is. So then I'm going to decide on my book where I want to put my signatures and where I want the holes at. So I know there's probably easier ways to do this, but this is the way that I do it. I'm just lining this up. I'm trying to set this in the middle. So I have about the same amount on each side. Okay. And then I'm going to hold this in place. I'm going to do this the way I did the other side. With the thing on there. So that I can put this back in the valley and do this one again. So that I can get a proper, what I'm doing here. Okay. And then I'm going to take my ruler, if I can find it, and I want to measure how far down I want my pages to start, where I'm going to put my first hole. And I think I'm going to come down about half an inch, maybe. About a half an inch, probably so. So then I'm going to come over here and determine where I want to put my first signature. I'm trying to stay in these lines because I know that I can't go any farther than this and this little score line right here. So I'm going to come down about an inch. Well, no, not an inch. About a half an inch. Okay. And actually, I think I'm going to come down 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and line that up. And then I'm just going to put a little dot there. And then I'm going to go over from that dot. I'm going to go over about 1/4 of an inch. Actually, about half an inch. And put another dot. And then the last one is going to go at 1 inch. Okay? So I have my first 3 dots. I know that's where I'm going to poke through. Then I'm going to come down from that first dot. From that first dot, I'm going to put my ruler down here. Line this up. Okay, so then I want to come down to the middle of the page. And I'm going to come down to about 3 1/2. And put my dot there. Take my ruler, put it back on my dot. And then I'm going to line that up with that one and come over 1/4 of an inch. And then at 1 inch. Make sure that's right. So that if I put these right here, they will line up. And they do. Okay? And then I'm going to come down, turn my paper around, and I'm going to come down 1/4 of an inch from this side. Okay? 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to make a little mark. And then from that mark, I'm going to go over a quarter of an inch, a half an inch, and then at 1 inch. And then I'm just going to take my ruler and I'm going to connect these dots. Because I want to make sure, if I didn't get these right, I want to make sure that I'm right on the money here, because I want my dots to line up. Oh, I hate hitting the dots. Okay, so I was off on the end down here. But that's okay, that's why I wanted to put my dots. That's why I wanted to draw my line. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I am going to draw a line and connect these dots here. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So I was off a little bit, but that's okay. On the bottom down here, because now I know where to put my little dots. I just come over here and put a dot here, and a dot here, and a dot here. Alright, so all my holes line up now. So all I'm going to do now is to, when I put that on there, I'm going to put it on my template on top of my other piece, the actual binding piece. And then I'm going to use my little punch, and I'm going to punch here, here, and here, and here, here, and here. And then when I do my signatures, I'll take my signature, like, let's see. If this was the first signature, which is going to be, I'm going to fold this up. And then, of course, I'll clip all my papers and stuff in. Then I'll take the first hole and line it up with that as well. And so that's how we'll do that. So I'm going to finish distressing this one. And then we'll take this. And next week we will sew our signatures in, because I will get some twine that matches this better to sew them, because I do hand sew them in. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this right here, and I'm going to sew, punch my holes, and I'm going to sew the signatures to this. Then we're going to open it up, and the binding will go into here like this with the signatures already on it. And then we'll just glue that down. And I'll be using some of this wonderful tape right here that I got from Lollapalooza. I wanted it a giveaway. It's by Yaz. And it is the strongest double-sided tape I've seen in a very long time. So we're going to be using that to line it all up and put it down. And I'm not worried about this showing, because I am going to put something on the inside of the books to cover it up. So thank you for joining me this week. Like I said, head over to Natasha's Scrapbook Corner, and she still has some of these kits. Y'all, it's so worth it, because you get so much stuff in these kits. It is just stuffed, as you've seen me. I'll link last week's video below, and I'll also link the unboxing of this kit as well. And yeah, so join me next week. We'll sew the signatures in. I'll show you how I sew them, and I'll show you how I put them in my book. And then I'm going to show you what I decided to do for the cover of the book. So we'll start working on that as well if we have time. So thank you for joining me this week. If you've not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so by hitting that little subscribe button up there. And don't forget to double tap the bell if you want to be notified each and every time. So thank you for joining me, and I hope I'll see you next week for sewing in the signatures and working on the cover of the book. God bless. Bye.